All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the weekly SIG Docs meeting. It is October 6th. I'm Jim Angel, one of your co-chairs amongst many, and we will get started. First of all, is there anybody who is a new contributor joining who would like to introduce themselves? You're nothing. Welcome back, everyone. Moving on to updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is Brad, the official representative of SIG Docs. Much appreciated.
Sure.
And next week is Raja. And I haven't spoken to Raja in a while, so I'll message her on Slack and see if she's still willing to be a PR Wrangler. If not, we might need a volunteer for next week. Cool. Moving on.
Sorry. I tried to unmute. I can volunteer. I apologize for missing my previous shift.
I will reach out to you once I hear back from Raja shortly.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cool. Moving on to the release 120. Is there someone who would like to take that for an update?
Hello, this is Ray. Yeah, so this past week or last week, Kristen synced the Dev 120 branch with Master, and that PR was merged yesterday. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Savita, for approving that PR. Also, there's one thing we want to add as an additional topic as well, and Anna's here as well. Want to discuss about creating an extra PR template for PRs that are related to the release. And if you could add a sentence or two to elaborate a little bit more, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. So one of the things that was brought up in multiple retros, so I'm working on a lot of retro items from previous retros, and one of them was how can we make sure that KKPRs are very visible to the docs team so that when we go and review and approve the docs for the release, like we don't have to go find the enhancement and then go find the KKPR related to it. And my thinking was that we could either add like an extra PR template, but I actually tried this out because I didn't know that we could do this, but it's kind of like, it's not that great because you have to like enter a query in the URL itself and then list like the PR template name so because there's already a default PR and I don't want to get rid of that. I want to just add on to another add on another template. So I wasn't really sure exactly what the team felt about it. And in addition to that, if this doesn't work out, I was just thinking maybe we could replace or like modify the existing doc that we currently have for the release to have like a little sample, like a description template thing there where people can just like copy and paste into the description.
Cool. So you're saying right now, if you open up a PR, there's no way to select it on default. You have to kind of know it exists and search it out. I'm not aware of this. Is there any way you can quickly share your screen and demo this, or don't want to put you on the spot here?
I'm actually on a new work laptop, so I don't have it here, but I can show it, I guess next time but it's like, I don't know, here. Give me 1 second. Maybe we can move on and come back to it.
I was going to say, it's not really a problem. I am fully supportive of this. I don't know if anyone has any experience in this area. I personally haven't done anything here. I think at the very, worst case scenario, we could potentially update the template that we have as is, and it would be an improvement, I would guess. But I'm definitely not opposed to this at all. And I don't know, does anyone else have experience in this area with PR templates? Dim's a maybe. Yeah, I think, I guess I should put it this way. If anybody objects, please speak up. Otherwise, I think it's a green light to go forward with things that make the release team's life easier.
Okay, then I'll make like a PR and then maybe we can do another like a review of it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
And one more thing to add, Jim, about the 120 release. So today is the enhancements freeze. So we'll be starting to track PR docs for enhancements for 120.
Awesome. Very cool. So overall, probably green, sounds like.
Yep, it is green.
I like it. Awesome. Moving on to the blog. Is there anybody on the call that would like to touch on what the status of the blog is? We might not have any representation from blog today. Not a problem. All right. Moving on to localization. I know that there was an awesome meeting kicked off on Monday. Sounds like some exciting stuff's going on there. I don't know, would somebody like to give a little more context on what is the localization working group, what had happened, and give a little more info to the team?
Sure. I'd be happy to, Jim. Basically, we had wonderful representation from a variety of the localization teams, and it was a really great opportunity for each of the teams to share their best practices. So a great way for us to level set our kickoff meeting was each of the teams talking about how they were doing things. Most of it revolved around how they were updating their version of the localization page. So in the English version, we've got a localization page that talks about how to get started if you were going to go create a new localization. What a lot of the localization teams are doing is updating and changing the content of that page to describe how their workflow works, how their processes work. As a concrete example, a lot of them provide a glossary. So certain words, like technical terms, maybe there's more than one example, more than one possible translation. And so for consistency, so I think it was in Japanese, there's like two different terms for server, right? There's a short version, Kohei, and a longer version, if I got that right. And so they have like instructions on, well, we should always say use the longer version or what have you. So a lot of great best practices were captured in our first weekly agenda if people want to go look at that. And we have sort of folks who want to talk at our next meeting and go into more detail. And I don't know if Kohei wants to add to that. He was one of the key folks talking.
Yeah. Yeah, basically we shared how we manage the localization and its contents apart from the English. And we also have to follow up the English, which is the contents up to date. And we're basically always far behind compared to the upstream. So yeah, we discussed how we want to keep it up to date. And yeah, we shared some strategy, not just from our team, but also like there was this Korean person. Korean translation is doing really well. So yeah, I also learned a lot from their team too. So yeah, that's what happened. And I also shared the link of the last night's. I mean, it was night for me. Last night's documentation link, Google Doc. So if you're interested, you can have a look at that too.
Awesome. Sounds great. Anything else about the localization working group update? I know I have an action item to get the meeting uploaded, assuming that it doesn't automatically happen, which will happen later on today, hopefully.
Just that I'm working on, as we speak, updating the community YAML page. And so I'm actually multitasking and doing that as we speak, but just adding the meeting notes to the community page, and then I'll add it to the docs page after I get that one done. So that's in flight. I didn't forget about it.
Awesome. Sounds good. And just talking a little bit about how the meetings get uploaded to YouTube. I think this is a process that's kind of behind the scenes I wanted to share with the team here, just so we're all aware of what happens. I personally learned this recently as well, because we were about a month behind of our YouTube videos uploading to our playlist. And I'm actually I'm jumping ahead here, maybe talking about the last action item I had on the agenda about fixing our YouTube playlist. But in short, our Zoom account, the SIG Docs Zoom account that hosts this meeting, that's pretty much the official, sponsor of all of our Zoom meetings, has a plugin in there. And what I mean by that is if you log into Zoom using the credentials for the official SIG Docs account, you can integrate plugins to that Zoom account. So I didn't know that Zoom had plugins, but apparently there's a whole plethora of plugins that you could use to improve your Zoom experience. So
I didn't know that either.
I had no idea, honestly. So one of those plugins is called Splane, and Splane, what it does is connect Zoom to YouTube. And what Splane does is whenever there's a meeting that's recorded to the cloud, it will say, oh, I see there's a new meeting in the SIG Docs group. I'm an integrated plugin to Zoom. I'll move it to Kubernetes, the YouTube channel. And then ultimately someone from the YouTube admins or somebody from ContribX would log into that account, see we have a ton of new videos pending needing to be sorted, and they would plug them into the playlist, respectively. So what has happened is that Splane, that plugin between Zoom and YouTube, is pretty flaky, and it sounds like it's a pain point for a lot of people in the wider Kubernetes space. And it doesn't always work, and that's really why we didn't get our YouTube videos uploaded to YouTube, or our Zoom videos uploaded to YouTube. When I asked, do we need to like unsync the plugin and resynchronize it, or do some sort of like wake it back up? Bob Killen told me no, Splane just pretty much is like that, and it might fix itself and it might not. So we'll give it a few more weeks here. Like I said, I'll manually upload this video most likely. I'll upload the video from Monday. It sounds like they're still not moving forward on that. When I upload it manually, I use my own personal account. I upload it there. I disable comments. I add it to the playlist. Kind of clunky, but I know there's other people in the community that do the same thing there. But the reason I'm going into this much detail is this whole process was completely like blind to me. I had no idea how this was getting managed, what people were doing, and I wanted to share that with more people.
Mm-hmm. So do we know what the playlist URL will be for the localization ones, or we don't know that yet? Because it's something I needed to add, but I couldn't figure it out yet.
I would imagine it'd be the same one, considering the fact that we put APAC meetings as well as our weekly meeting in there. But I guess that we could create a new playlist if you think it needs one.
No, I just didn't know what value to put in the key field in the URL. So I was like, oh, I mean, I guess I could just use the exact same one for the regular SIG meetings, and then I would be okay, right?
Yeah. I really don't see a problem with that unless there's a reason to break it out. I could be swayed the other way, saying that maybe you want all the localization stuff separate, so then folks could review it separately. But I got no opinion.
I think just whatever's less friction is best. So I'm totally. I just wasn't sure. So.
Cool. Yeah, I say let's do that. We'll keep it simple. Put it in the same playlist. Be all good there.
Okay, great.
Cool. So moving on to the next agenda item for issues and PRs. And also, if there's anybody else on the call who has any issues or PRs, feel free to link them down there or throw them in chat. We could talk about them. The one that I just wanted to bring to folks' attention was the Hacktoberfest and spam. So for those who aren't aware, every October, DigitalOcean creates a contest called Hacktoberfest, where they encourage folks to create 5 PRs, and whether they merge or not doesn't really matter. And they want to encourage open source contributions. And as a result of that, they'll give you a free t-shirt if you get 5 contributions in before the end of the month, up to 70,000 entries. It unfortunately leads to a lot of spam and a lot of spam PRs where maybe they're lacking of quality. And this is a little bit of a challenge, more so I think for docs than any other area of Kubernetes, or maybe in the open source community. Documentation in particular, we have those simple small PRs, we have those drive-by PRs. Personally, I got into contributing to open source by creating some of those small, lack of really any true sustenance PRs that now could be considered spammy. So there's this kind of fine line you have to walk when you're reviewing these PRs, because you start to get this influx of PRs and you have to determine whether they're spammy or not, and kind of walk that fine line of being in an inclusive community at the same time rejecting spam for Hacktoberfest for a free t-shirt. Luckily for this event in particular, maybe not luckily, unluckily, there was a very specific YouTuber who was popular who gave a very clear instruction set on how to create spammy PRs, which would be like open up the README and add -is awesome to the word Kubernetes. And so what we ended up seeing was an influx of about 50 to 60 PRs within 24 hours of everyone just adding these real trivial -is awesome PRs to the README. There was folks updating localization READMEs in English, even though they weren't, they're adding English content to non-English files, for example. So this is just bringing awareness to this. There is a happy ending here. DigitalOcean realized the negative impacts to maintainers in the open source community that this had brought. And as a result, they've switched their rule set to make it so it's opt-in, so not everybody can just create PRs in any project. They've started to open up roundtables with community maintainers. So they wanted to learn how they can make this event better, how they can really encourage growth in a more healthy manner. And they've started to detect what is the spammy PRs on their end. So they're not awarding t-shirts to folks who are just doing these flyby spammy PRs. And I say spammy with a clear distinction of spammy PRs for a free t-shirt and flyby PRs that we want to encourage. You know, I want to be clear that we're not discouraging, you know, small PRs. We're not discouraging folks from making typo changes or fixes. We're just making sure that we're not encouraging the behavior of spammy PRs there. So it's a very long-winded talk about Hacktoberfest, but I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of the context there, aware of the PRs they're seeing, and aware of that fine line, especially documentation that we see as maintainers, as reviewers, as approvers. Any questions or comments on that? Tim?
So DigitalOcean put some community feelers out, and I've booked in on Friday to a maintainer roundtable, an open source maintainer roundtable / group therapy session. So I'll report back on that the next time I'm at a weekly meeting for SIG Docs.
And I just want to say a huge thanks to Tim, previous week PR regular, because I was expecting to log in and just see a horrible mess. And I was very pleasantly surprised that when I started logging in on Monday, there was no disaster waiting for me. There was no is awesome PRs all over the place. So I assume Tim did just huge amount of work last week to clean up that mess. So thank you.
Honestly, it was a team effort. People from
Okay.
Contribex and other areas, you know, saw the bat signal go up, and I had an easy time. But there were a lot of PRs getting closed.
Gotcha. So I was happy.
Yeah, I was gonna big +1 to that, Tim, as well. There's a lot of folks from Contribex in the greater Kubernetes community that saw Kubernetes website repo getting spammed, and they jumped in right away to help. And before I would even see a PR hit, it would most likely have been closed by someone from Contribex. They were lightning quick. They jumped to the task at hand, and definitely a big shout out to them, and thanks for helping on that.
That's awesome.
Cool. Any other issues or PRs that folks want to discuss?
I had a question on not really spammy issues, but I've seen some issues that are more like support issues created, and I've commented in the past to try the Kubernetes user Slack channel, Stack Overflow, or the office hours link. But is there like a proper flow on like and like how to close it besides asking the author to close it? So the author may not go back and close it after some time. They still want their answer to the support question.
That I don't have a great answer for. Personally, I've done the same thing, kind of directed or guided to mailing lists, Slack forums, try to be supportive and help them out. At the same time, I've also closed those issues out and just said, you know, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to help not migrate, but helping to direct folks into the proper support channels that they need be. But I'm open. Does anyone else have any opinions on that or any recommendations? That's just my personal way of handling it. Here, no strong opinions one way or the other. Yeah, like I said, it's a kind of once again, that fine line to balance. I'm more than happy to help out folks who, you know, message me on Slack, find me on GitHub. But if there's an open issue, it's a support issue, no real action to be taken. I see no issue in just saying very politely, hey, look, this is a support thing. Here's where you can get help. Reach out to me if you have any questions, things of that nature.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Cool, and it looks like in chat here we have a PR. Looks like it just needs to be approved and merged, and there's been a review applied by Raghavanda. Did I say the name right? Raghavanda? Sorry, I might be mispronouncing that, but we'll.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Sorry about that. So, anything in particular with this issue you brought up, or just looking for approvers to get more eyes on it?
So looking at that PR, I think it could use maybe a couple of tweaks to the English. It hasn't been reviewed yet to do that. That's what I'm seeing sort of after a quick look.
Oh, sure.
We did have a busy week.
Yeah, I know that. I saw the the release doctor. So yeah, big. I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working through the list as PR wrangler, so I'll write it down and make sure I get to it. I mean, obviously, if it's just English, Tim, I'll take care of it. So it's 24:35.
Yep, and looks like it's added to the agenda too. Thanks, thank you, Tim. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Cool. Anything else if folks want to talk about regarding the agenda before moving on to process? The fun stuff.
Can I add, since there are a bunch of people on this call, so SIG Docs is having a chat, a talk at the next KubeCon, and before the end of this meeting, if anyone wants to suggest a thing that they wish they'd known when they started contributing to SIG Docs into the website, I should have asked this earlier, but it just cropped up in my mind. It'd be good to hear it.
Tim, you. So what is that question again?
Tim, I can't really hear you clearly. Can you please repeat?
I said he said, what's the question again?
So SIG Docs at the next KubeCon, which is online and virtual, is presenting a talk, Introduction to SIG Docs. What do you now, with a bit of experience and hindsight, what do you now wish that you had known when you first started contributing? If people have suggestions as to what should be in that talk because of something they wish they'd known, it'd be great to hear it, either in this call or in the Slack channel afterwards.
I think it's a great open-ended discussion topic item. I think besides just asking here, it'd also be good to post that question in Slack, Tim, for feedback as well. But I'm curious if anyone wants to answer it here, if we want to shelf it, maybe revisit it. Anything's early on?
What are you guys talking about this at this conference this time? No plans yet, or?
So it's kind of a new approach for SIG Docs this time around, because normally SIG Docs would participate in the Contributor Summit, which is the first day before KubeCon happens, where it's for contributors. There's not usually a traditional SIG Docs conference like event in KubeCon. We don't really do any deep dives. We don't do any intros. And so this is a first for SIG Docs where there's no contributor summit, but there's actually an official KubeCon talk. And what I would imagine will happen is similar to other intros and deep dives, because that's the other thing too, is there's no longer two talks for each SIG. So before there was an intro talk and there was a deep dive talk. Now all the SIGs or special interest groups are getting a single talk to cover both. So I would imagine the talk would cover an introduction to what SIG Docs is, what we do, moving on to more of the deeper things there in the span of, I think it's 45 minutes we have, plus Tim brings up an excellent point. If there's folks who are completely new to Docs, what's important to them? You know, there's no point in preaching to the people who have already been involved in SIG Docs. It's what do you wish you would have known before joining? Cool. Yeah, no, personally, I think, you know, thinking back to when I joined SIG Docs, my biggest blocker was the process, like how things get approved, how things get in, what the lingo is, LGTM / approve / label / block this / you know, what have you there. I really think that was something I learned over just watching and kind of observing from the sidelines. I don't know how you can teach that necessarily to folks who are new or joining about what's important, because there's so much to learn, how docs are getting merged, how they're getting approved, who reviews them, who's giving attention to issues, where do you get help, you know, things of that nature. So personally speaking, that was a big learning experience for me that I just kind of acquired over time.
As for me, I think it's it's also about process, but the difference is like when I try to ask for a review, I don't know the comment to that. So usually the suggestions is not belongs to those who are the review the PR or the someone who have a native language for that specific language. So it's kind of like really difficult for me to ask for review from the right person, I guess.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Anything else?
I mean, just a logistic issue with Zach being out a little bit. And the other folks that are on the hook for presenting at the conference, I think is Celeste and Tim and myself. Tim, are you on point? I know I think I had given you a copy of my deck, but are you, which one of us is kind of running with it to make sure we're going to be ready to record and all that good stuff? So I just want to know who's in charge.
I guess I will take on the responsibility that there will be something uploaded before the deadline.
Okay. Well, I mean, you had my
Maybe
deck
45 minutes of Bars and Tone.
But you have my deck, right? So you have something to start with. Right?
I'm not sure I have seen the deck, Brad. Like you may well have
goodness.
sent it. There's a just to be clear, loads of people have shared decks with me, and the one that I think Brad's talking about, I haven't seen.
I'll send
That doesn't mean I haven't been sent it, but it hasn't gone on in front of my eyeballs.
Oh, it's pretty obvious that's me. It's got, IBM all over it and Brad all over
Yeah,
on every chart, 50 places. So yeah, I'll send it to you.
Cool. There's a direct, I'll DM you about that, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
So regarding this, I have a question. So since we opened a new subgroup for localization, do you think we can talk about that a little bit at this talk, or should we like separate that from the SIG Docs itself?
I think that'd be very important to include this localization working group, at least to mention at the very least. I know since it is a working group and it's underneath the umbrella of SIG Docs, I would imagine there would be a mention about blog, which is also a sub-project, as well as the localization. Pretty much all things that are docs. What do you need to, take someone from who's completely new to docs to more experienced in 45 minutes? Easy as that.
Yeah, like even just 5 minutes or, around that, just fine. If there's any time that we can talk about localization, we can absolutely help you guys.
The thing is, why this will be interesting is because when people start to contribute, I think they will feel more safe when they contribute in their own language, or at least something
that is very important. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Here's a sneak preview, people. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely on the agenda.
Cool. Anything else about the KubeCon talk? Awesome. Appreciate you bringing that up, Tim. I think that's a great idea to talk about, some of those new experiences for sure. So the last thing on our agenda here, I already touched on the YouTube playlist. It's fixed. There's a link there. But the last thing on our agenda is quarterly Q4 planning dates. So traditionally, we kind of throw out a date there. If it works for folks, great. If there's some, people we can accommodate for, we can definitely move this or change it around. Right now, I put the tentative date as Thursday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific. The challenge we face is meeting everyone's locality as well as making it a time that's friendly for everybody, and it's not a perfect answer. So what I've done is copied off of what we did in July. So for the Q3 planning, we did a 5 p.m. Thursday meeting. So there's no science behind that date. We doesn't have to be that date or time, but that's what I'm suggesting. Does anybody have any strong opinions? Can make it, cannot make it, based on that October 22nd deadline?
Sorry, 5:30 p.m. your time, Central Time?
It is 5 p.m. Pacific.
Pacific, thank you.
Yep.
So I can't look at the doc, so couldn't see it.
Cool. So hearing no major objections, I'll keep it at that time frame. If there's anyone who completely objects to it, has any issues, feel free to reach out on Slack. What I'll end up doing is, and why it's important to set this date, is I'll open up a doc for the Q4 planning, and it allows people to review where we're at, what we're planning on talking about, as well as if there's any new big initiatives that folks want to talk about at the Q4 planning, or things that folks want to, sign up for tackling. It's really more the long-term goals of SIG Docs. And the purpose of it is, we do a lot of day-to-day churning of, merging PRs, maintaining doc health, maintaining community health. This is more of the bigger picture. I know, for example, one of my items from Q3 planning was improving the release process. And so that's a wider goal. It's going to span, multiple quarters. It's going to span multiple releases, and it's going to be something that involves tracking. So any folks who are interested in doing more, wider achievements in SIG Docs, this is going to be the meeting to attend and talk about, as well as review what happened in Q3, what went well, what didn't go well, and how we can improve. Any other questions about the Q3 planning? All right, hearing nothing. Is there any other topics folks want to talk about?
One question.
Yep.
So sorry, bringing back to the topic about the KubeCon, what's the deadline for contents decision making? Do we have no particular deadline?
So we the people doing the talk have to have our slides uploaded by, I think, the last week in October. But in terms of what goes in there, if we haven't got it done in a couple of days, I'd say Monday next week would be quite late to have decided what the content is, because we need to actually rehearse and record it.
I asked them that question because we basically decided the SIG Docs localization meeting just once a month. So if we ever talk about anything about localization, I think we have to set another meeting.
Well, yeah, but I think you got to remember that we've got about 45 minutes for this presentation, and then you have to leave time for questions. And so it's my guess that really what we'll get to in the presentation for localization will be a nice chart. I mean, there's already content in the deck for localization, but a nice chart talking about and highlighting that we have a localization subgroup, and here's what the goals and the mission statement are. My guess is, Kohei, we're not going to be able to get to more than that, because it's not like the old days where we got 4 hours, right? We used to get 4 hours, and we could have given a whole hour to say localization and really have to plan. But since we're really down to about a 40-minute presentation.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I think
so from maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes ish, right?
Right.
Of the whole contents. Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But what we can do, I think, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, what we can do is we'll put the content together, and if you're interested, we'll ask you to review it and see if you think we missed anything. How's that? And we can do electronic updates without worrying about our next meeting not being for another month.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that works there, yeah, I think, yeah.
Does that work, Tim? Thumbs up?
Yeah. Is there anyone else who's particularly keen on being actively involved there?
I would like to have it involved.
Involved in what? Sorry?
So Evie, what I'm asking is, is there anyone who wants to take a very active role, and, you'd have to sort of commit to giving feedback fairly promptly, but in sort of, reviewing
the slides.
The slides, yeah.
The draft presentation.
Yeah, I think one thing we could always do is share out the slides once they're prepared or at that final draft state. Share them out with the group as read-only or something. Let folks make comments to them, or make a copy of it if you want. I think there's no drawback to getting more feedback.
Yeah.
Open source? What are you talking about, Jim?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Anything else folks want to discuss? All right. That's officially the end of the SIG Docs meeting. Appreciate your time, everybody. Talk to you later.
Everyone,
Yeah.
thanks,
Bye.
Jim.
Thank you.